everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Body Wisdom Podcast. We are your hosts, Kiara Orbe and Gabby Barboza. Welcome. Thank you for listening to our podcast. I just wanted to pause and say thank you for everyone who takes time out of their day to listen. To think that people want to listen to at least my voice, I'm just honored, and just wanted to express my gratitude for you. So thank you. Gosh, I love talking about the nervous system. I love it so much. I find myself just bringing that up in conversation somehow with people, and people are like, huh? I love talking about it. And one concept that has really been spotlighted in this space is the concept of safety. I love that we're talking about safety because I feel like for so long, there's that saying, it's growth happens outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes we were leaving our comfort zones too soon and therefore creating further dysregulation. And so I'm glad that we're kind of rewiring that conversation and switching it up and bringing it back to how can I just feel safe in my body? How can I learn my body's boundaries? Because when I feel safe, that's where healing happens. That's where healing happens, actually. So when we talk about feeling safe within our nervous systems, we are actually speaking of the social engagement system within our bodies. And that is also referred to as the window of tolerance or your ventral vagal system in terms of polyvagal theory. We have the sympathetic nervous system, and we also have what is called dorsal vagal, which is shut down. Everyone, I feel knows and understands the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, which I can also think people have this negative connotation associated with the sympathetic nervous system. And that's just not supportive, I feel like, anymore, because our sympathetic nervous system is protective. It does serve us. Thank God for our sympathetic nervous system to fight or to flee when needed. But it's the long term, when we're spending time in that area or in our dorsal vagal shutdown state, that we don't have the quality of life that we so desire. And that really happens when we are within our window of tolerance, right? That ease and flow and safety that we all innately desire exists there. So the question is, why can't we just feel safe? Why, if I tell myself I feel safe, then I'll feel safe. And the thing is, trauma is not mental. So we can't think our way into feeling something. Our body needs to have this felt sense on the inside. What tells you that your body actually feels safe? Because then and only then you'll be able to tell oh, I think I'm experiencing some regulation. Oh, I'm in my window of tolerance. So it happens by being with certain activations that are in your body. Say you're noticing a headache, right? I work with clients who get headaches all the time and migraines, and I really empathize with them because I never really get headaches, but I got one a couple of weeks ago and I was like, this is awful. So I can't imagine having one every single day. But let's say that's a very chronic symptom for you. Can we notice the headache? Can we maybe notice where it is? Is it more so on the right side of your head? Is it on your temples? Is it on the left side of your head? Is it at the base of your skull? Where is the headache? Is it everywhere? Or is there one spot that we can be with? And maybe it's not in your headspace, but maybe it's in a finger or a toe that feels a little less activating than your headspace. If that's feeling like a 10, can we find somewhere in your body that feels like a 9? But it's first mapping out the activation. What does it feel like? Is there anything that I would like to say? How can we be with it instead of immediately trying to get rid of it? Can we notice it? And even just by noticing it, we start to notice deactivation. We start to notice discharge. And then we start to experience regulation. And this usually happens with an empathetic witness present, because that co-regulation is what's going to help us cultivate that safety together. And then that's how we kind of go back to our window of tolerance and experience that safety. And so that's when you get a felt sense of things. You can do it by yourself, but I will tell you, it's not I do it by myself sometimes, but it's not the same as when you are being witnessed by someone and being led and being facilitated, because again, that co-regulation is everything. So again, safety happens by being with the activation, allowing it to move how it wants to move, experiencing discharge, and regulating, being back in that window of tolerance. And sometimes it's so challenging to be in our window of tolerance because trauma happens and that creates disembodiment and our window of tolerance narrows. So we're working with this very narrow window of tolerance, and we're spending most of our time out here because of the fragmented pieces of you that happened when trauma happened. But slowly but surely, we will start expanding that window of tolerance, and it'll be easier and easier to feel safer and safer in your body, which, just as, the whole saying about healing goes, is that it is very nonlinear and it is a very slow process. And titration is very important with nervous system work. And just as it is with taking supplements and introducing new things into your life, we never want to overwhelm a system, especially a system that is already so past its capacity. So yeah, in a nutshell, the nervous system in regards to creating safety in your body.
I think the healing being slow can be a really hard pillow. Talking about pillows. It can be a really hard pill to swallow. But if you think of it in a lens of one leads to more long-lasting regulation, and then if you're trying to go the other route, which is super fast and get there immediately and do all of the things to get there, that leads to more dysregulation. So it's like, we want to go slow because we want to actually do this. Like, we want to actually be doing something about what we're working through instead of being on that same path, which you might resonate with, but being on that same path of like, I just need to fix it now and move on. When really this work, especially when you're working like deeply with emotions and trauma and things like that, it deserves so much time and space to work through.
I love that you said that. It deserves so much time and space to work through because you didn't get that. And bringing it back to childhood, like, how often are we attuned to? How often are we being given that space? Unless we have that awareness and education to know how to do that. But oftentimes our caregivers were not resourced enough to be able to give us that time and space. And so now when we're adults, we get to do that for ourselves. And what a gift. What a gift to be able to do this work. It is almost a privilege to be able to do this work. Honestly, I think about that all the time, how my mom had to be in survival mode coming from another country and literally fighting to survive, learning another language, trying to get by, going to school and working at the same time, and I'm here doing this healing work. What a privilege. What an honor. Anyway, I don't know how I got there, but I went there.
No, it's just, like it makes sense.
And I think there are moments in our day where we can cultivate safety. Like if you're someone who's living, your mom, or if you are a business owner or whoever, I feel like a lot of us are really living lives that are not supportive to our physiology, whether that's being sedentary all day, being stressed off the wazoo, like just with bills and kid stuff and things to do. The busyness just is endless. We can all be busy. We can all come up with things to do. It's very rare to feel bored when we're older. And if we do, it's uncomfortable. It feels strange. At least that's how it felt. I went on a little hiatus, a little break, a little sabbatical. And I noticed like, wow, I have been so busy these past couple of years. And to give myself rest and break has felt really strange in my body and has even been activating in moments. Like I feel like I should be doing something, but just reminding myself this season of life that I'm in, how can I actually just savor this? How can I savor these moments? Which brings me to ventral vagal anchors, and we can create safety in that way. I don't know about you, Gabby, but for me, and ventral vagal again means like social engagement system. That's when we feel safe and at ease and connection. We feel connection when we're in ventral vagal. So ventral vagal anchors are things in your life or people in your life that feel safe and at ease and we feel connected to. So for me, that's in my space, like lighting candles or Palo Santo or grabbing a blanket and cozying up on the couch and always making it a mindful thing, meaning that I'm not just mindlessly lighting a candle. I do it in a way that is very embodied and it brings me this sense of peace and joy. And there's just something about lighting a candle that sparks something within me, and it just immediately signals safety in my body. So what are a few things that you feel you can call ventral vagal anchors in your life, especially while traveling? This is good.
Yeah, I was thinking the little moments that, yeah, it's totally different when you're traveling. Sunshine is definitely like something that I seek wherever I'm going. I mean, that's really why I'm traveling, is I'm figuring out how I can be in the sun a lot more often than the winter. I would say there's a couple things that I think this is aligning with what you're saying about just safety that I bring with me. Like one of those things is my best friend, he got me and our other friends like these shirts a few Christmases ago, and they're from our high school from when he was coaching. And that is a shirt that I wear to bed like almost every night because it's so comforting to me to have like my best friend got this for me. It reminds me of home. And that feels very safe for me. I feel like there's like little things and rituals that can travel with you.
Ooh, I love the rituals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm traveling, I feel like I need to have some sort of like movement practice, just really landing into the space, because that helps my body feel safe. Otherwise, I'll just feel chaotic with like traveling, airplanes, and people that are probably also very dysregulated. Like we pick up on their energy unless we like have like really good boundaries, like energetic boundaries. But yeah, traveling can be really, really dysregulating. So whenever I land, I'm like, okay, how can I ground? Like grounding in and of itself is super resourceful.
As often as I can. I'm in New York City right now, so it's not really possible. I mean, it could be, but as often as I can, I go outside and put my feet in the earth and just ground there. And then also, I'm somebody who, as a Virgo, this might be surprising, but I'm somebody who does not unpack as soon as I get in. And I think that can be really nourishing to some people. But for me, I really have to feel the energy of the space I'm in before I can just unpack my stuff. It feels almost like I'm exposing myself to a place that like I don't know yet. And so even like 10, 15 minutes, I want to ground in the environment that I'm in. And if it's a place that I can't go barefoot outside, then I will just like lay on the bed and like acclimate myself to this place I'm in, and then I'll start the unpacking process.
It's really like coming back to the body is what I'm trying to drive home here. What is your ventral vagal anchor? And really spend some time thinking about that, because it's going to vary for everyone. Like I mentioned a candle, I mentioned a blanket, I didn't mention, but like my dogs are super resourceful for me. I love them so freaking much. But that can vary for everyone, because it's really coming back to your system. How do you know that this is resourceful for you? Like I can pick up a book and that's not resourceful for me. And that's going to change too on a daily basis. There are moments where I do want to pick up a book and that feels really nourishing. That feels good. And then other times I don't have the capacity for that. And that does not feel safe. What I need right now is laying on my floor, and that's it. I just need to lay on my floor, and that's really regulating for me. And maybe I stare out the window where I have these big oak trees in front of me. And there's something about trees, especially in polyvagal theory, that are just so grounding and resourceful. Hug a tree, as they say. Because they are so anchored. Like just talking about anchors, like they're just so sturdy.
I mean, they lose all their leaves in the Northeast and they just still are chilling.
They're just still there, strong as fuck. Yeah, but the sunlight, I love that you mentioned that. That's another one for me. A heater. Like I think one of the biggest concepts of safety, and I can't believe I'm forgetting to bring this up until now, is following your biological impulses. That's how we really begin cultivating safety. And what I mean by that is if we're hungry, do we eat? If we're thirsty, do we eat? If we need to pass gas, do we pass gas? If we are cold, do we put our heater on, or do we put our sweatshirt on? If we need to say something, do we say it, or do we suppress it, and do we stuff it down, 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 down? Slowly but surely, that'll start to create dissociation. And that's very in alignment with dorsal vagal energy. This like shut down, monotone, flat disassociated state. And so the more we just connect with our bodies and what it needs at any given moment, and we choose to honor that, we choose to actively listen, then we can start cultivating safety. And I also want to speak to the people who feel like they don't have a sense of what that is, or feel like they can't. Like, I know my body's telling me I'm tired, but I don't feel like going to sleep right now. And, that's just a cue and information from your nervous system and the state in which it's in. And that's okay. Acknowledging where we are is how we get to more safety, more regulation, and just noticing that. And I like if then statements too. This is something that's big in polyvagal theory. If I feel tired, then I will grab a blanket and lay down and maybe turn my red light on or whatever it is. If I feel hungry, I will go make myself a nourishing meal. Or did I even say then? If I'm hungry, then I will go make myself a nourishing meal. Yeah. So that can be helpful too.
It's coming back to like the simple parts of our life. And I think that I have definitely been in phases where I felt so busy, but if I really stopped to take a second to look back at it, it was like, how was I really contributing to that busyness? It was more in my control than I thought it was, even though like in my busy states, they're not being apparent. And so that's totally different. But my busy states were like when I was in college and working and just trying to like figure out being in my early 20s and the transition there. And there were times where I feel like I didn't have 1 second to myself, but looking back, I definitely did. And like changing the relationship to how can we bring in more of the regulating resources, and how can we notice when we choose not to bring those regulating resources in and instead go by the default of like the scrolling and that can feel really regulating in the moment. But it's not like a true regulation.
Or we kind of override the sense of like, oh, I'm tired, but I need to finish this. Or, and sometimes I also want to speak to it. Like sometimes there are seasons like that, and that can help create resilience too. But do we have the recovery afterwards? Like the true healing recovery to create that resilience? Or are we still running on E and pushing and grinding and hustling and wonder why we're so burnt out? When we override our body's impulses, that is creating further dysregulation. And yeah, it's signaling to your body like, oh, there is threat. We need to like be on all non-essential systems, shut off. We're prioritizing her survival right now. And that's what matters. That's the only thing that matters. So I will do everything. I'm just speaking from the nervous system standpoint here. I will do everything I need to do to keep this person alive. And so we're surviving, not thriving. And there's a big, big difference. And I honestly don't even know, Gabby, how many people in this world truly feel that like on a regular basis. Like I was talking about this with my friend the other day. Like, I just want to spend a week with someone who feels just so embodied and doesn't have this impulse to like just be on their phones or to dissociate in whatever way that is for them because of the co-regulation that happens there. I'm wondering like what I would feel like in my body just being around them. Because I have an SE practitioner who is super fucking regulated, and that's just through a screen. And I get it like a deep sense of like what regulation feels like with her, but I can't imagine what it's like in person. I mean, we talk about in-person connection all the time, but yeah, that safety that we probably felt in that instance it's like unimaginable, feels like.
Yeah. And it's inspiring too. Like you can sense that and it's like, okay, how can I create more of that in my life? And then the more you sense that, the more you can also sense the dysregulation too. And it's like, okay, you just start to pick up on like different habits that maybe you or people you love have. And we could go down a rabbit hole there, and you don't have to try to change anybody, but it's just like you can notice it and not let it consume you, because as humans, we are so likely to do the things of the people that we're around the most. And you can really come back to yourself and be like, you know what, this person that I'm with does this all the time, but that really doesn't make me feel good. And so I'm going to do this. It's very empowering to listen to your body before just like going down the rabbit hole of something that doesn't feel good. And also just speaking up little things too, to the point of like, say you're going out to dinner with friends, and after dinner, they all want to go to a bar and go to grab drinks. And in your body, you're like, it's actually a work night for me. I feel tired and I'm ready to go home. And being able to say, I'm going to stop here and just head home and not have guilt. That's very regulating to honor what you need and going home to your bed and going to bed and not going out and then feeling like mad at yourself that you didn't honor yourself the next morning.
I feel like we need a whole conversation on understanding your body's boundaries. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of like the first place we start when we start creating boundaries, because whew, in this season of life that I'm in right now, again, recording this as I've taken a sabbatical off social media, I have just noticed in the ways that I thought I was serving my body, but I was actually pushing my body, even if it is in the slightest ways, whether that's movement or sometimes even just going for a walk. I have this space now to really understand, like, what are my body's limits? What are my body's boundaries? And how does my mind try to override that boundary just in the name of like getting it done, or just in the name of like, because it's good for me, because it's healthy for me? Where am I? Where is my nervous system right now? And how can I honor that? Like, I'm noticing right now, like I am tapped out of energy for the rest of this podcast. And so I will spend a lot of time resourcing myself later today to kind of discharge from all the arousal, like, because this is sympathetic energy that we're using right now, right? And
I
so
feel the same way. We feel
yeah, exactly. And not pushing. And that's also going to shift. Like your boundaries are going to be flexible, maybe more in your like follicular and ovulatory phases. And then as you enter luteal menstrual, like they become a little bit more rigid, you know, that flexibility is really important. And understanding, yeah, they're going to shift. And can I remain connected to my heart for those boundaries as well, especially as I begin to set them with other people, because boundaries are not mean, especially when we're trying to unlearn and rewire like years and decades and generations of conditioning and programming that saying no is bad and, you know, it's not polite or whatever. You should just do it. And like, but they did this for you or whatever. Gosh. Because it really just comes back down to our nervous systems and feeling safe. And how can we be of service if our nervous systems don't feel safe? So, like this really applies to moms, especially, which I also like can't fully speak to because I'm not a mom. We're not moms. So I'll get to that stage at some point in my life, but I feel like this work still applies in some way.
You can listen to our episode too on polyvagal parenting. Is that the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Polyvagal parenting with Mandy Flanders. That was the episode 12 of season 6. So check it out. It's a really good episode. We did talk about boundaries there. Yes. Very important. And if you're interested in joining our course, we will link all of those details below. Gabby and I have collaborated on a course that is really bringing it back to the foundations. And I feel like safety is one of those foundations. So that is also included inside of the nervous system module inside of the course below. So those are in the show notes. And yeah, that's all we have for today, guys. Thank you for listening. Until next time.